The greatest of all time, Pat White, is going to be returning home, I am told. A lot to get down to, a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about it right now on Locked On West Virginia. Stick around.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name's Mountaineer Paul. I am your host. This is Locked On West Virginia, talking football, Mountaineer football, baby. So this is brought to you by Game Time. We all know we love Game Time around here. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So obviously this is pretty big news. Pat White, I am told per source inside the building that he's coming home. It is not going to be broken locally right now. This is me coming to you telling you this is going to happen. Now, there are things that could happen absolutely in between now and a few days from now. But I know this. Pat White will be signing a contract in the coming days, and he's going to be a part of West Virginia again. I don't know how, I don't know into what role, and I don't know when, but I was given the go-ahead to go ahead and do this. So, look, at the end of the day, I can come back on here and eat crow in a few days. This is absolutely possible. And I'm going to get the whole trust me, bro, source, trust me, bro. But I've never come on here and lied to you guys, and I've never come on here and been wrong about any kind of prediction like this. You can go back years and check. So at the end of the day, this is me trusting somebody inside the building. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm very sure this is going to happen. So if it doesn't happen, I'll answer for that. But let's move on to the ramifications of this. Pat White is obviously the greatest quarterback. Him and Major Harris you can debate in West Virginia history. So what does that mean to us? Well, it means a lot to us because obviously a lot of us grew up watching Pat White and loving Pat White. I did. He's basically my young adulthood and partially my teens, 18, 19 years old. So this is it's huge for me personally. I think he could come in and be multifaceted in a multiple role type situation. He could help Rhett get started with quarterbacks. He could help with the offense. Maybe he's the offensive coordinator. That would be a great job for him. You know how awesome that would be if he was brought in as the OC? That would be such a great job for Pat White. He's the only guy I could see left out there that could come in here and actually do that. So that's another one that I would love to see happen. And if you'll remember, he was just on the Pac-Man Jones show not even a month ago talking about this. So it's not like this is not, both ways. This isn't a two-way street here. So as Rich Rod has been putting his staff together, people have wondered who the OC was going to be and stuff like that. Well, when he was on the Pac-Man Jones show, he was asked if he was interested in joining Rich Rod's staff if the opportunity would arise. And Pat said this: "It would be nice to be back in them mountains, man, especially with my guy Rich. Morgantown is the second home. I love coaching the game of football, and to have the opportunity to work with the guy that helped make me a name for myself and get in there and allow another guy similar to myself to build a name for himself. And finally, get that national championship Morgantown's been waiting on. For me, it would be an honor to be a part of this staff." And he says more than just that on that episode. It was a really good episode. But just generally speaking, this would be bigger than big, huger than huge, larger than large for a lot of reasons. And I am really hoping it happens. The person that I've been told by is an absolute dunk. But when it comes to contracts, it hasn't been signed yet. I know it's going to be signed in the coming days. So when it comes to things like that, you just kind of have to hope for the best that nothing goes wrong. But as far as I understand, everything's just waiting to happen, and that Pat White's packing up, ready to move here at some point in time. So I don't know when that's going to be, or if it's going to be now or in the next. I know it's going to be within the next week or so. So just be watching for this information, man. So like I said, this is big news. I've said this a couple times, but I just can't get past the possibilities of Pat White helping the quarterbacks on this team. He's so similar to get ready to play in this offense. He knows what it takes to win in this offense. He knows the nuances of it. He was the best that's ever run it. So how can you bring a better guy in than Pat White? You can't. You literally can't bring in a better guy to teach this than Pat. So, and he's got experience. It's not like he hasn't been doing anything. He's worked a bunch of different places all throughout his career since he's left football, and unfortunately had those concussion issues. And I think he's ready for the role. He's worked in the NFL with the Chargers, obviously. He did that for a while. What else did he do? He worked in college too. Let me make sure. Let me go through some of his history really quick as a coach, because it's fairly impressive, to be honest. Like, he's done a lot more than you would think as a coach. So let's go to, all right, coaching career. Yeah, so he was the quarterbacks coach at Alcorn State, where he was hired. He joined his former teammate Ryan Stanchek, who was Alcorn State's offensive coordinator. He spent 2 seasons at Alcorn State. Then he was hired to coach the running backs at South Florida. And he came out of that, was no longer with the USF after 2020. And he was hired at the quarterbacks coach at Alabama State from there till 2021. And after that, he took the same position at Campbell. Then he was an offensive assistant for the Chargers up until, obviously, Harbaugh got the job. Thank you to those that are doing super chats. I would just ask you. For those of you who listen on podcasts, people have sent me a super chat on YouTube here, and I'm not allowed to read them per Locked On. So, Rodney, thank you for that. And I just wanted to let you know I appreciate that very much. But I'm supposed to just kind of go on with the show these days, guys. And I know I've gotten a lot of complaints about that here lately, but at the end of the day, I have to do what I'm told. So, and look, I think this is, like I said, a really big impact. And then you look at what Rich Rod's been doing here lately, reaching out to all these quarterbacks and all that stuff, man. I think Pat White can only help you show these guys, like, here's the living embodiment of what was so successful in this system whenever he was here. Pat White is literally going to be here to say, look, it made me successful. We won 4-0 in bowl games. We won 2 BCS games while I was here. And there's a lot that you can draw from on the Pat White side of things to kind of sell it. And also he's a good coach. I looked into his Chargers career. He turned down a few really good jobs while he was there. Maybe he wishes he took them now since Harbaugh came in, but certainly there's a lot to like about the possibilities here. I'm hoping that this happens somewhere by the end of the month, but time will tell. So that's big news, guys. Hopefully you guys are excited as I am about this, because to me, Pat White walks on water. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat him as anything as far as West Virginia was concerned. As far as, I mean, if you had to make a list, it's like there's not very many guys above Pat, maybe 5 or 10 before you get to Pat all time. And we're talking about Jerry West, Sam Huff, Hot Rod, guys like that have really changed and impacted us, like Major Harris, Pat White, or like as far as football goes, it might be Sam Huff and then Pat White. I don't know. I mean, there might be a couple others I'm missing. There are Darryl Talley. There are, but I mean, I'd have to look at a list. But Pat White's of the good. He's in our Hall of Fame. So, and I don't know about Rasheed Marshall. I think he's still around, but he was more on the media side of things anyway here lately. Anyways, he had been helping Tony's son at times during the football season, and I don't think he's actually going to be coaching on staff, although he's a great choice too. But he does not the impact that Pat White is. And look, guys, Pat White's not doing anything. He's in Alabama. He's at home. I think he told Pac-Man he was doing something with maybe helping like coach quarterbacks, different things, like kind of like this training facility or something. But I mean, like, he's not being used. Why wouldn't you bring him in? And like, you could bring in like this staff's going to have a lot of coaches on it, but the rules allow for that. So why not? Why not bring him on? So, and I agree. Retire 9, retire 5. Absolutely. That'd be cool too. Retire his number with him coming in. Sure. Or I'll tell you what I like better than retiring a number personally. I like what they've done with like number 11 at Penn State. You get one guy that wears that number every year, and he kind of is the embodiment of who that player was. If you can find somebody every year like the LeVar Arrington number 11, I think that's a cool idea. I wouldn't mind seeing somebody wear number 5 every year that embodies a lot of what Pat White did well, which is toughness. I mean, when I think of Pat White, that's the first adjective I get to is toughness. So, all right, guys, up next on Locked On West Virginia, let's talk about Rich Rod reaching out to some huge name quarterbacks. And let's break down that K-State game. Are they waiting in the weeds? Could they get us too, just like Arizona State? Well, I don't know. Let's talk about that next on Locked On West Virginia. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. You guys all know Game Time is basically my favorite. And attending playoff games is an experience like no other. The energy, excitement, and the connection with other fans is unmatched. I remember the thrill of seeing my favorite team clinch a playoff win live. It's a memory I'll never forget. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, and that's being there. I used Game Time Picks to grab tickets for an upcoming playoff game, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value for amazing seats, and I could even preview them from my seat in the app before I buy. All-in pricing is a game changer as well. No surprise fees at checkout. Plus, just knowing my tickets are backed by the guarantees that I love, which is event loss cancellation, job loss protection, lowest price guarantees, on-time ticket delivery, you name it. Most flexible policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase, and download the Game Time app today. Get last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed, and ask yourself the question of questions. What time is it? It's game time. My blood type is Mountain Dew. Let's segment 2. Let's crack that dew. All right. So, Rich Rod, let's talk about this first. It's game time, John. What do we want to talk about first? I want to talk about K-State, but I'm going to save that for last. Let's talk about the quarterbacks that Rich Rod is reaching out to right now. Yeah, that's what it says. My blood type is, in case of emergency, my blood type is Mountain Dew. Yeah, you guys get it. Rich Rod's reaching out to some big-time quarterbacks, guys, and I think this is super interesting for multiple reasons. Now, we all know that Neil Brown had basically Brody McWhorter locked up. I mean, he was coming to West Virginia. It wasn't if, it was when. And with the firing of Neil Brown, that changed. Well, Rich Rod has been trying to do damage control. And he went there yesterday, but he wasn't the only one. Georgia head coach Kirby Smart went there and others. And in this continued effort to kind of win McWhorter back, they post this screenshot. So, Rich Rod has basically got his hand on the shoulder of McWhorter. And, it was a great conversation with Rodriguez, is what McWhorter said. So, hopefully, he's enjoying the conversations he had with Rich Rod. I don't know how committed he was to Neil, and maybe this is kind of like having the reverse effect, especially when a guy like Kirby Smart was there a couple hours later. But sure, this is definitely, in my opinion anyways, a big deal. And you look what he put when Neil Brown was fired on that picture. It said, doesn't even feel real, can't thank this man enough, legendary. That's what he said with Brown. So to me, man, it's like, I hate it because I think the close relationship he had with Neil is going to hurt this, but it could also be, maybe it's a West Virginia thing. Maybe he wanted to be a Mountaineer, and that's also great too. There's another guy in that class that Rich Rod went ahead and reached out to today and got a picture with. So did Chad Scott, which this kid towered above Chad Scott. He must be 6'5", 6'6", which is taller than I am. So 2026 quarterback Falzone interested. I think that's how he pronounces his name, Peyton Falzone or Falzoni. So 6'5", 205 pounds. And West Virginia's in the mix. And he said this: since Rodriguez is considered the founder of the spread offense, fits my game extremely well. And with him taking the reins again, I'm excited to see them dominate. He's a four-star prospect out of Nazareth area, in Nazareth, PA. And they're pretty much, they want him. He's a kid that threw for 2,100 yards, 23 passing touchdowns, had 800 on the ground, 800 on the ground with 8 scores. Definitely dual threat. And he says schools complement my ability to navigate the pocket and then my ability to escape and make throws down the field. Also, with my top end speed being 22.3 miles per hour, schools like that, the fact that I can break away from defenders when the play breaks down. No kidding. That's huge, right? So I think this is a big deal, man. I think Rich Rod is recruiting their ass off right now, and I think things are only going to move up from here. We're going to continue to recruit at a high level here now. Rich Rod was already starting to head that direction the last time he was here. I mean, you look at the recruits that we were getting towards the end of his tenure, and what could have been had we gotten certain other quarterbacks during his tenure, it would have been big time, man. And unfortunately, things just didn't happen for us, which kind of sucks. But yeah, I really would have loved to have seen what going to happen. I really would have loved to have seen what would have happened with what was the guy's name that went to Ohio State? His name slipped my mind all of a sudden. Anyways, you guys know what I'm talking about. The quarterback that went to Ohio State that left. We almost had with Rich Rod. Would have been huge, man. So, yeah, Rich Rod's going after those kind of guys again, which I think is great. Let's talk about really quick, too, up next on the other side of the break, this K-State game a little bit. That's tomorrow. I think this team has a chance to kind of get back on track after the flu and everything that happened to them last week, which is big. Stick around, guys. This is Locked On West Virginia. We'll talk about it. And we are back on Locked On West Virginia. Yeah, Terrell Pryor. All right, so West Virginia versus K-State happening tomorrow. And I got to be honest, this is one of those games where things could either spiral out of control for this team or they can get back and realize who they really are. On paper, K-State was as talented as anybody else in the conference. I mean, Coleman Hawkins, Doug McDaniel, who was one of the best guards in the portal, Max Jones, Brendan Housen, Gasson came back, even though he went in the portal for a little bit. They got Castillo, Jones, Onyenso. And you look around and they're 7-10. And how did they get here? Well, surely they played a tough schedule, right? No, not really. Not as tough as you would think. I mean, when you look at their schedule going back to November, they lost to Iowa, New Orleans. They beat New Orleans. They beat Cleveland State. They lost to LSU, Mississippi Valley. They barely beat Mississippi Valley. No, they beat them by 20. Wrong game. George Washington they beat. Then they lost to Liberty. They beat Longwood. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff. And then they got destroyed by St. John's. Beat by Drake. Beat by Wichita State. They barely beat Cincinnati. They lost to TCU. Oklahoma State thumped them by, 13 points. Houston beat them by 30, which they're beating everybody by a lot. Then they lost to Texas Tech, Kansas, Baylor. They're in a big 5-6 game skid right now. 5-game skid. So this is a big one for West Virginia because look, you got Oklahoma State next. I think we got to get these next 2 wins, which aren't guaranteed. This is a road game. It's 6 p.m. tomorrow. You're going to be a little off the time schedule because you got Iowa State, Arizona State, who just beat us. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm looking at K-State's schedule. My apologies. I was thinking that don't look right because our schedule doesn't have Iowa State back on it again. Okay, so after this game with K-State, we've got Houston. That's the game. And then at home this time, then you got Cincinnati, TCU, Utah, BYU. Like, you can go on a little run here. If you can get by K-State, get yourself gathered back for Houston, which is probably going to be a loss, unfortunately, which I won't root against this forever. But in that game, I think, Houston's the better team. But at home, we're better. But we just lost to Arizona State in a piss poor showing at home. Then you got to go to Cincinnati, TCU. Then you're back home for Utah and BYU. And you go back to Baylor, home for Cincinnati. But there's a lot of wins left on the schedule if you can just beat who you think you can beat. So absolutely, this is a big deal, and I certainly expect this team to punch back at a K-State, a team that was picked 8th in the conference preseason. They're nowhere near that now. They're more like 15th. That just for whatever reason hasn't been able to get things going. I mean, their leading scores, David Gasson, 12.6 games, 6 points per game, which is like 22nd, 23rd best in the Big 12. It's not exactly elite. I mean, 12 points per game, that's like one of Monty Hansberry averages. He's 6'9". I mean, he's a great shooter, great rebounder. He does a lot for them. He's certainly a piece. Coleman Hawkins is a great, defender as well. And I don't know why they're not better on defense. West Virginia's 4th in the Big 12 in scoring defense, goal percentage, 2nd 3-point shooting percentage. K-State's among the bottom 4 teams in the league in all 3 of those statistics. And then if you look over here at KenPom, we've got the 18th best adjusted defensive efficiency in the country. K-State is 111th. 4 of their 6 losses were been in league play, decided by like 10 or fewer points. Their luck rating's really bad. It looks like on what I'm looking at here on Gold Blue Nation, 0.120, which is 352 out of 364 teams in D1 level. Usually you get a couple games swinging your way. They're right there at the bottom, which I don't know how they factor the luck thing in, but it's a stat that I like to look at every now and again too myself. So a lot to look at here for this game. I think West Virginia wins the game. I do. I'm not – K-State's capable of beating us, especially if we play like we did against Arizona State. And they've got some bigs that can punish us, obviously, because when we have to go with Hansberry and Andre on the floor, it can hurt us at times. But overall, I think West Virginia with Javon Small and everybody, hopefully back to 100%. I haven't been able to find out what the locker room's feeling like here the last couple of days. They're keeping things a little more tight-knit since the flu broke out. I'm assuming they don't want anybody to know, obviously, ahead of time how they're feeling, which makes sense. But I think this team is definitely going to be able to come back and play well. So for those of you just joining the chat, I'll go ahead and reiterate what I spoke about in the first segment. So obviously I got a phone call today from somebody inside the building talking about Pat White and what's going to happen here in the next week or two. And the plan is for Pat White to come down here, sign a contract, be a part of the coaching staff. That's per my source. So just remember where you heard it if it happens, and then we can talk further about if my source wants any credit or not. I doubt it since they're in the building, but you never know. You never know, man. I'm always good. Don't mind a side of source if they want credit. In this case, they don't. So let's look at it like this. This is somebody I trust and believe. So it's on me. I'm putting my name out here on it. So we'll see where it goes from here. I guess you guys have to decide how much you trust me I've been doing this for years, and I've never come on here and lied. I haven't always been 100% accurate, so everybody misses. But I will say this: I wouldn't come on here and talk about it if I didn't feel good about it. So, what I understand, he's going to be here within the next week, and look, it's not like this is unheard of. Like once I put this out before it went live, I had 2 or 3 people reach out to me in the media and say, "Hey, look, there's definitely some smoke to this. There are rumors, so say what you will." But I had people that and love every single day that you visit their websites reach out to me and said, "Yeah, there's just not enough to run with yet, but there's a lot of rumors about Pat White anyway coming home, and why wouldn't there be? He's at home. He's not doing anything. They can hire as many people as they want. Why would you not? There's literally no reason not to bring him on." So it's not some huge stretch to believe that it's going to happen. So I'm assuming it's going to happen here in the next week or so, and he'll sign a contract, and then we'll find out what he's going to do. But I would say it would probably be a mixture of OC duties with quarterback, and this is just something for Pat White. Like, you give Pat White an OC opportunity, and this team does really well, he's going to have a chance to move on and do greater things, So, or even if, let's say, Rhett, maybe he moves on someday. He gets a job opportunity before his dad retires. And Pat White's still here. Maybe he gets a shot at the job even. Like, there's a bunch of different ways you can look at it. But overall, like I said, I think this would be great for the program. It's a great optics for the program. It's great for the program in general. Pat White is absolutely a legend here. And I believe personally him coming home is as big a deal as any other signing we've had outside of Rich Rod. So, and I think you can sell it to recruits. Like I said, go to any dual threat guy in the country and say, "Hey, look, I ain't got to tell you how good you could do in this. This guy can tell you he did it. He literally retired the all-time leading rusher in history for a quarterback ever. He went 4-0 in bowl games here at West Virginia, 2 BCS games here at West Virginia. Heisman in the conversation during a time which we were only in the Big East here at West Virginia, when there wasn't as much visibility as there is now in football athletics." So Pat White brings to the table everything you could ask for. I think in a coach, he's going to know the X's and O's part of this. He's been on NFL staffs. He can tell these kids what it takes to get there. He made it to the NFL from West Virginia. So I think look, this is going to be a big deal if it happens, and I think it's going to happen based on what I've been told. So that's it. I'm a big fan, and I think we'll be great. So hopefully you enjoyed this, guys. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're new around here, I go live usually 7 days a week, if not 6, but most of the time 7. I can't remember a time when I didn't go live 7 days a week. It's been months now, so I try to put a lot of content out. I usually go, if I can, I'll go live multiple times a day sometimes as well. So, try to put that work in for you. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, we'll have a post game tomorrow after K-State. I'm going to try to bring John Kurtz on tomorrow morning to talk about the game in more in depth. Just depends on schedules. I kind of just forgot about there being, a game tomorrow. I was thinking it was later, but it's all good. Other than that, guys, not a lot else to talk about. Thanks for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen, for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every single day. Like I said, like, subscribe, follow me on X at Paul Mountaineer. That's at Paul Mountaineer. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great evening. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This episode's over. Crack-a-doo. And I'm out of here.